Hey guys, it's Eric from GameShampoo.com. Today is Sunday. Fuck, I forget what the day is. Hey guys, it's Eric from GameShampoo.com. Today is Sunday, August 4th, and Pikmin 3 comes out today. I don't actually have a copy of that game yet. Nintendo doing that traditional Nintendo thing of sending out their game on Sunday for some reason, which they've been doing ever since, like, I don't know. There we go. Which they've been doing ever since the Wii came out, I'm pretty sure. But hopefully should have it tomorrow. I just want like a physical copy of that game to unbox and then to put up on my shelf as well. Should be the first Wii U game that I will have purchased, I think, since the console came out, or like since in that general launch window. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be the first Wii U game that I've bought in about 8 months. So that's exciting, and seems like it's gonna be really interesting and a lot of fun. But I guess that is the news for today. Nintendo pumping out a rare Sunday release, and then next week there's going to be another one. Mario and Luigi Dream Team for the 3DS is going to be bringing back the classic Mario and Luigi games. I've always loved those, so I'm really excited for that. It's a good month for Nintendo fans this month, and a pretty exciting month for video games all around, with Saints Row 4. I always want to call it Saints Row the 4th. Such a good title for the third game. And XCOM, the Bureau, I should say, XCOM Declassified, and Splinter Cell Blacklist. I keep wanting to call that Splinter Cell Conviction too. So Splinter Cell Blacklist, the Bureau, and Saints Row 4, all coming out on August 20th. And let's see. And Lost Planet 3 rounding things out on the 27th of the month. And I believe DuckTales is coming out in about a week for Steam, XBLA, and PSN as well. So it's a packed month leading into a really packed, exciting holiday season, probably the most exciting holiday season that the video game industry will have had in, of the generation, I guess, because it's the new generation coming around. So we finally get to see for ourselves what the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 are really capable of, and maybe even more interesting to me, whether or not the Wii U can actually hold up against those two giant consoles. And it has a chance. Sonic Lost World is coming out in October, and that looks pretty promising. And I think Mario 3D Land is coming out, or Mario 3D World is coming out in December. We've got The Wonderful 101 in September, so there are games for it, finally, just maybe not coming at the best time for the console. Anyways, all that stuff is way off in the future. So I am here to talk about the last week in gaming, and then briefly touch on what's going on next week, if much of anything. I already mentioned the Mario and Luigi Dream Team game, and I'll have to look it up, but I know there are some releases. But anyways, get through the news and the reviews of the last week first, and then we'll look ahead to next week. First things first, we're going to start things off fresh with a Narco Terror review. A lot of people probably could see where this one was going from a mile away, but still, we've got a nice in-depth review, a lot of screenshots. I played through Narco Terror, so please go read the review, www.gameshampoo.com/magazine, and it is the very first article up on that page right now. Or you can just head over to the review section, where it will be the first in that section as well. Please don't make my sacrifice in vain. I played that game for you. It's not very good. pretty dumb. It's kind of funny in a way, really, how fucking terrible that game's story is. Like, it was written by a child who is high on caffeine, just like scrawling things down with his crayon. Like, you start the game off and you're just on a helicopter, like not in it, but on the front of it, just punching the dude driving the helicopter in the face and screaming like, "Where's the DEA agent?" And the guy's like, "Oh, he's in the warehouse." And then you like jump off the helicopter and just fall down like 30 feet, but you're fine, and the helicopter explodes. And like, what the hell is even going on? What? The entire game makes no sense. Just thinking about it kind of makes me smile. So maybe if you like really terrible things, like I do, like really, really dumb, kind of like goofy bad stuff, you'll get a little bit of enjoyment out of it. I did get a little bit of enjoyment out of it on that kind of, oh my god, I can't believe this is so bad kind of level. But it's not, certainly not good. And following right up after that, we have a second review of BioShock Infinite's Clash in the Clouds DLC, which keeps up that trend of things not being very good. Especially given that BioShock Infinite itself is such an amazing game. It's kind of disappointing to see that Clash in the Clouds falls short, doesn't really seem to understand what it was that people liked so much about that core game, or if they do understand, you know, because the next two pieces of DLC are both heavily story-based. Clash in the Clouds was rushed, let's say. They needed something to keep people's mind on the game, so they just kind of like pooped this thing out onto Steam and XBLA and PSN. And it's just a bunch of combat rooms, and even though they kind of put in some new hooks to try and keep everything interesting, they give you these challenges like kill all enemies with the shotgun or kill all enemies with the skyline strikes and stuff like that. They put in all these hooks, but it's not enough to keep the combat without any kind of story to play off of from becoming quite boring, and it just feels like a slog. So in a way, it's almost like Narco Terror, which is a sentence I never thought I would say. BioShock Infinite is kind of like Narco Terror in a way, but both of those games are just mindless combat, or, you know, the Clash of the Clouds DLC and Narco Terror. BioShock Infinite itself is a fucking masterpiece, but both of them are just combat, straight combat, and it gets to feel like you're sitting there, you're not thinking, you're just zoning out. You just think like, what am I doing right now? Like, I could be doing anything else right now and be doing something productive. So yeah, I don't like Clash in the Clouds very much, but I am very excited for Burial at Sea Part 1 and 2, so keeping my fingers crossed for those. They look really cool. Which I guess I should also mention, that was really big news last week. So we have two articles up, one about Clash in the Clouds, which kind of goes over the new challenge maps. That was the announcement, and then obviously we have much more in-depth with the review. And then we've got an article up about Burial at Sea, which kind of details some of the story stuff. No spoilers or anything like that, but has a few choice quotes from Ken Levine. So go check that out if you're interested in BioShock Infinite. If you're not interested in BioShock Infinite, then get out. What's up next? Call of Duty Ghosts, the official multiplayer reveal, will be coming on August 14th. Not much more to say there, except stay tuned. Obviously, we'll have that stuff when it goes up. And, you know, I'm interested in seeing what they're doing with the multiplayer there, considering they were showing off some kind of not destructible necessarily, but like, say, like malleable kind of environments, how you could like shoot that big pile of logs and they would all come tumbling down on people, or they showed off like a telephone pole falling over and crushing a car and kind of making a makeshift ramp you could climb up and jump off of, I guess. If they take that stuff like as far as they can take it push it kind of to its natural conclusion, that could be kind of interesting. At this point, really, any change to the Call of Duty multiplayer formula, even if it's a pretty minor change, just in terms of the way the game plays, as opposed to them just changing the systems around the gameplay like they usually do, any change whatsoever, no matter how small, to that core gameplay at this point is like monumental, because how long has it been since they've changed that core gameplay loop of running around, shooting guys, getting kill streaks, getting, objective points and stuff like that. If these environments can really alter the way that you think about playing the game, combined with, they've got the leaning stuff in there, they've got the faulting stuff in there, which people made a lot of fun of on the internet, probably rightfully so, but hey, at least it's something. So I'm interested to see if they have any other changes that they're talking about, or if that's really it. So should be fun to find that out and kind of follow the progress of Call of Duty Ghosts. I always have a lot of fun following the progression of those games as they enter development, and as they kind of go through that development process, put out all the trailers and then come out, because I feel like I've just been waiting for the point where people as a whole stop paying attention to those games anymore, grow tired of them, or the sales drop off to a point and then kind of plateau, and then it's the same people buying it every single year, kind of like Madden, or those big sports games. And I don't know that that's necessarily happened yet, but it could. I don't know. They've seemed like they've managed to inject just enough of a spark into most of the games to keep them kind of like, oh, it's really slightly different. Most of that stuff has to do with switching around the way the perks work, or switching around the way the kill streaks work, switching around the way that you customize your character, really small things like that. I thought Black Ops 2 last year was a good step in, maybe not a step forward, but like a sideways kind of step in, at least, like, hey, this is different, and we've got these weird kind of like side missions in the story, and you can alter where the story's going. It's a weird Call of Duty game, but it's also one of my favorite Call of Duty games. And so far, Ghosts doesn't really have anything, as far as I can tell, to really set it apart from its predecessors, from like Modern Warfare 3, for example, aside from its new setting. So, really interested in following the development of that game. We already have tons of impressions of it if you're interested in Ghosts. If you haven't really been following it along as much as I have, or whatever, we have tons of Call of Duty Ghosts stuff up on the site. I think the latest was an E3 preview, so go check that out if you haven't already. Another big game this fall is Batman Arkham Origins. We have solid 3 stories about that over the last week. The first of which was that it will have an 8-player multiplayer mode. This is not your traditional kind of like one team versus one other team mode. This is actually a 3-team mode. 2 players play as heroes, Batman and Robin. 3 players will play as thugs working for the Joker, and then 3 more players will play as thugs working for Bane. And all these teams are fighting against one another, but the thugs have a common goal of taking out Batman and Robin. You just want to be the team to do that. You don't want to let the other team do that. And so the thugs actually play out, it seems kind of like Gears of War or Uncharted or something like that, where you're taking cover, you're shooting at Batman and Robin and these other guys with shotguns and assault rifles and RPGs and all that kind of stuff. They showed off some gadgets that looked like they could actually be a lot of fun. There was a remote-controlled drone that flew around and launched rockets at people, and then there was a guided rocket where you could actually whip out this little controller console and then guide the rocket. The camera would zoom in to behind the rocket, and you could just kind of like steer it around. There are probably more immediate comparisons than this, but for some reason this is the one that springs to mind. It's kind of like the revolver in Singularity, if I could get a more weird, obscure first-person shooter reference in there. Other games have done similar things. Bulletstorm did something like that with its sniper rifle too. Go play Bulletstorm. Bulletstorm's awesome. Now I'm thinking about it. Next story came out almost immediately afterwards. Warner Brothers confirmed that the multiplayer mode, which is called Invisible Predator, will not be coming to the Wii U. So if you have a Wii U and you have an Xbox 360, a PS3, or a PC that's capable of handling this kind of chunky, massive game, don't buy it on the Wii U. It will not include any online multiplayer whatsoever. They were kind of hedging their bets there. And Warner Brothers kind of just came out and said it's not a big enough market. It would be too risky for us to invest that much of our resources in something that probably won't pay off. It's a console whose user base has shown little interest in online multiplayer games. Remember back to the Black Ops 2 launch, where around the time the Wii U launched, there was a good 500 to 800 players online at any time in that game. And I think when it peaked, there was like maybe 1,200 online at any time. And on other consoles, you'd see like hundreds of thousands of people online, even if you logged in the middle of the night. So Wii U owners not necessarily showing a huge interest in like competitive online shooter kind of games. And also Mass Effect 3, that whole thing. I don't even know if that game had the co-op mode. It did, yeah, it did. But nobody was in that. Nobody was in Madden online. Really just kind of empty out there, out for the Wii U. Sad news though. I don't dislike the Wii U. I think it has just kind of like a weird, scrappy sense of like complete unprofessionalism to the Wii U that I find kind of endearing. The sense that these people just kind of threw this crazy thing together that has no business really being on the shelves in competition with the PlayStation 4 or the Xbox One. It's like they almost had no idea what they were doing, but they ended up with something that I kind of like kind of despite myself. And I'm happy that it's starting to get some games like Sonic and Pikmin today, stuff like that, because then we can at least judge it on fair merits next to the other consoles. But anyways, the final piece of Arkham Origins news is that beta invites are actually being sent out right now, seemingly at random. I don't know if Warner Brothers has made any kind of comment as to what they're doing, what kind of system they're using to send out these beta invites. As far as I heard last time, they were kind of just sending them out to people on their mailing lists, shotgun style, but no real order to it or anything. Wolfenstein, The New Order, mixed up two headlines there. Wolfenstein The New Order has been delayed into 2014. Originally, the Bethesda published shooter was supposed to come out on the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, as well as PS3, Xbox 360, and PC this holiday season. I was actually pretty psyched for that game. I have it pre-ordered for next-gen consoles, and was really looking forward to being able to see what Machine Games does with the series, because Wolfenstein has always been kind of this interesting redhead stepchild, aside from Wolfenstein 3D, which was obviously revolutionary. But, the Activision published one earlier this generation just completely fell flat, even though it was kind of like this weird, quirky, pseudo-open world, kind of segmented world game. Weird game. So really excited to see what Machine Games does with Wolfenstein The New Order. Unfortunately, it has been delayed indefinitely into 2014. Still on track for release eventually. And I do have to double check this really quickly, but I believe that The Evil Within was supposed to be set for this holiday season. Looks like people don't really Now, this is one of those games that I was never able to kind of internalize the release date for, but the Evil Within horror game, published by Bethesda, obviously, and developed by Shinji Mikami's Tango Gameworks, and yeah, this is set for 2014 as well, on current and next gen. So I wasn't sure if that was coming out this year or next, but seems like we're going to have to wait until next year to see how Bethesda's new partnerships actually turn out. A next-gen Tomb Raider sequel is well into development, according to Square Enix's not their CEO. Let's see, according to Square Enix's CEO in Europe and North America, Phil Rogers, he wrote an open letter to Tomb Raider fans addressing the issue of the poor sales of Tomb Raider, which it sold like 3.2 million in its first month. I think that is what most people would consider a huge success. The Last of Us moved around 3.6, I think, in its first 3 weeks, and everybody at Naughty Dog and Sony was pretty pumped about that. Granted, this is a multi-platform game, but 3.2 million sales is pretty high. Still, that was really disappointing for them. People questioned, are they going to be making another Tomb Raider game, or are they kind of going to put it on the back burner, or maybe make it into like a lower tier kind of $15, $20 thing like Lara Croft and the Guardian of Light. But no, a second Tomb Raider is actually in development right now, and there's a comic being written about it, which was kind of detailed at Comic-Con, where you'll see Lara's adventures before Tomb Raider 2 and kind of get a little bit of setup for that. Red Dead Redemption 2 could be coming soon. Take-Two made remarks earlier in the week to the effect that the Red Dead Redemption franchise is a permanent franchise, indicating that there will likely be a next-gen sequel somewhere down the line, perhaps in 2015 or 2016. Our goal is to try to create permanent franchises. That's the unique goal in the industry. Our competitors do not see it that way. Our competitors' view is that our franchise will have a certain life, and at the end of the life you move on to the next thing, so you better make hay while the sun shines. Our view is to the contrary. The best franchises are permanent franchises. Outside of our business, you can look at James Bond, for example. And I think they've been doing a pretty good job of that so far. GTA is still going super strong. Obviously, the fifth one is coming out in just about a month, which is really exciting. And then they've got, Borderlands, which they certainly take their sweet time pumping as much as they can out of each one of those releases. Civ, and, games to that, games like that. So, that kind of feeling of not necessarily cranking out yearly sequels is definitely already in effect at Take-Two, so it wouldn't really be that strange to see a Red Dead in a couple years. But expect Red Dead Redemption 2. What else do we have here? Just a lot of weird, random stuff. I guess let's keep on the sales numbers right now and talk about Nintendo and how badly their Wii U is doing. It is doing very badly. The console has tanked in North America, essentially, and globally, really. The Wii U sold 160,000 units across the world between April and the end of June. So, in a 3-month span, 1/4 of the entire year, the Wii U sold only 160,000 units. It was outpaced by the original Wii, which sold, I believe, 210,000, and was super far outpaced by the 3DS, which sold, like 1 million or something like that? Yeah, 1.4 million. And it moved 11.4 million games. So, the 3DS obviously bringing home the bacon for Nintendo right now. The Wii U is just a colossal money sink for them at this point. They have to market the thing if they have any hopes of it succeeding whatsoever. but the reality of the situation is that they are in the worst possible situation right now, with next-gen consoles launching in just a couple months that far outpace the Wii U in terms of power, in terms of features, in terms of the games they've got. Even at launch, if you look at the lineup for the PS4 or the Xbox One at that launch window and then into the next year, into 2014, you'll already see that there are more games on the PS4 and Xbox One than there are on the Wii U, and those systems aren't out yet, so that's bad news for the Wii U. Developers aren't going to be very happy either seeing those super small numbers. I mean, for reference, the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3 both outsold the Wii U handily, easily, over the last quarter, and those things are 7 years old. So Nintendo has some real work to do, despite the fact that it doesn't cost that much to manufacture a system, just one Wii U, and that Reggie says it's profitable after you sell one game. They're going to have to spend millions on marketing for that thing if they want anyone to pick it up, because a lot of people I know still don't really even know what it is, and most people I know are fairly into games. They just don't care about the Wii U. 3DS, though, doing really, really well. Animal Crossing New Leaf was a standout. It sold 3 million units in Japan and has moved over 1.5 in the West so far. Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon sold 1.43 million copies worldwide to date, which is not bad. And Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D has apparently been doing quite well, although they refused to comment on exact numbers with that one. I'm really curious how, not to keep coming back to Pikmin 3, but how that game will sell today and into the coming weeks. Because there aren't that many people out there with a Wii U, but a lot of the people who have it are probably really looking forward to that game at this point. And really, by now, like, what else are you going to do with your Wii U? If you've got one, you might as well go out and pay $60 for Pikmin 3. It looks like a solid game. Of course, we will find out as soon as possible with an unboxing and a review and all that good stuff. So we've got Call of Duty Ghosts, we've got BioShock, went over that stuff already. Fear is going free to play. This is a weird news story. This is like the last game that I would anticipate going free to play, but yet here it is. It is Fear Online. We've got a trailer for it up on the site. It's going to be based off of Fear 3's multiplayer modes, but kind of highly improved and really polished from what they had in that game. They did focus a lot on multiplayer. The single player was a lot more action heavy in Fear 3. They were kind of going for that CoD kind of vibe in a way. And so I guess this is them going back to that multiplayer suite and saying like, hey, we had something kind of cool here. The game didn't necessarily light up the sales charts like incredibly or anything, or the review charts either really, but this is kind of them going back to that well and taking that work they did and kind of improving upon it, making new maps and everything. It's not like it's just going to be a rehash of Fear 3, and putting it back out there and seeing if it sticks. It's actually developed by a completely different developer. I think it's a Chinese studio. 3 different people involved in this, so we've got Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment, Interplay Interactive, and Area Games. Area is the developer, and they are a Chinese studio. So basically they're taking the modes of Fear 3, things like Soul King, and they're kind of squishing them into this free-to-play online shooter with new maps and new like customization, new gameplay, and all that stuff. So really strange. I never had the impression of Fear as being like this really popular multiplayer title. Maybe I just am not up to date with Fear, but I tried to play that game online, the first one, after I got it, and there was like 2 games going on the Xbox 360 version. So I don't know how the second and third games fared online. Big StarCraft 2 patch added UI features for spectator mode. Face is like super itchy right now, I don't know why. adds new layouts for spectators that kind of make commentating on a match a little bit easier. A Capcom Essentials Pack includes 5 games for the price of 1. Has not been officially announced yet, but will release for $60 with DMC 4, Dead Rising 2, Super Street Fighter 4, Resident Evil 6, and Mega Man 10. No release date on this one yet, but it's coming to the PS3 and the Xbox 360. It'll likely be on multiple discs or contain download codes, probably the more likely solution to that. But I feel like they're kind of trying to hype up, like, hey, we got this new version of Street Fighter 4, and we've got the new DMC game out there pretty recently, back in January. Excellent game, go play it, seriously. Did not sell enough copies to make Capcom happy with it, apparently. And they've got a new Dead Rising coming out for the Xbox One, so might as well pimp these games to people who don't know that much about them yet, and see if you can maximize the sales potential of the things coming up, and it's a damn good deal to boot. So if you're interested in Capcom and what they do, but you just haven't gotten around to playing some of those games, maybe check that out. I've got a trailer with commentary over it for Assassin's Creed 4's multiplayer Wolfpack mode. It's a co-op kind of wave-based survival mode. There are enemy pirates attacking this chest that you've got, and you need to protect it with your bros. So check it out. It looks like fun. It was at Comic-Con and it was at E3, but didn't get too much of a chance to really see what was going on with it at either of those things. Just kind of bad luck. So if you really want to see what's going on with the co-op multiplayer in Assassin's Creed, we've got that trailer up. Soul Calibur 2 is getting an HD and online remake. No word on Link or Spawn being in the game, although my guess would definitely be no, they won't be, because they are licensed to third-party companies. But Heihachi definitely will be in the game, and it will be coming to PS3 and Xbox 360 via XBLA and PSN. No Wii U version. So we've got 30 minutes of Killzone Mercenary gameplay up on the site right now. It is a Vita game, the biggest Vita game of the year probably, and basically they're attempting to take that big Killzone experience, that beautiful, like, gorgeous AAA shooter kind of experience, and then just smush it and put it on a tiny Vita screen. And based on what I've seen in the video and some really, really brief hands-on time I had at E3 in the Sony room, it seems like they could very well succeed at that. So if you have a Vita, absolutely check out this video. It's a half hour long, it's huge, it shows off some stealth gameplay, it shows off drone gameplay where you can actually take this drone off of your back and then just kind of like send it out there, and it has these 2 spikes on it and it'll like skewer guys in the head for stealth kills. It's pretty cool. And it also shows off how the game will be using the Vita's unique features, like the swiping on the touch screen, swiping on the back screen to zoom in your sniper rifle and stuff like that. So it's really interesting. It's gotten me looking forward to the final product, which comes out next month. We have a review of Shadowrun Returns. I actually like that game a lot. It's my favorite game that I've reviewed in the last week or so. It's obviously a big Kickstarter project, and it kind of goes back to the roots of what made Shadowrun cool and popular with people in the first place, instead of that kind of misguided PC Xbox 360 shooter, which everybody hates, but I didn't really think it was that bad. I just thought that it made absolutely no sense from kind of a development standpoint. Why is this multiplayer only? Why is this a first-person shooter in the first place instead of like an RPG, or at least like an FPS RPG hybrid, like Borderlands style? FPS makes like no sense for Shadowrun, except in practice it kind of did. It kind of like lent a kind of unique vibe and aesthetic, as well as a bit more customization than usual to, or maybe not customization, but more choice over how you wanted to play the game with all the different races and stuff. than an average FPS these days has. So I found that game interesting and totally serviceable, but a lot of people really hate it. But Shadowrun is returning with Returns. Classic isometric adventure mixed with this kind of turn-based XCOM style combat. Clean looking artwork, a pretty solid story that drives the 6 to 8 hour campaign forward. Decent number of side missions which are all fleshed out with their own stories and characters and kind of feed back into the main story in a really satisfying way. And yeah, it's really good. So check it out, and it's probably most notably the first huge Kickstarter project, or maybe not huge, I think it made like the first like $1 million-ish Kickstarter project in the gaming realm to really put out a solid product. The Ouya's out, but that thing is anything but solid at this point. And Double Fine just announced recently that they would have to be pushing Broken Age back and releasing it in 2 parts and cutting all this stuff out because they just made it such a bloated project once they saw that millions of dollars in their account. It got so ambitious. It's good to see with Shadowrun Returns and also with Mercenary Kings, which just released on early access, that Kickstarter can be a viable source of games that are really good, and that come out. This game was delayed a couple times, but that actually exist, that come out and are solid, satisfying products, and you're not getting duped by these guys. There are probably some people on Kickstarter that are trying to dupe you, but whatever. Speaking of indie games like Mercenary Kings, which will be on the PlayStation 4, segue, Sony apparently sends out PlayStation 4 Dev Kits for free, and they will be doing this to independent developers specifically, although they may be doing it for third-party AAA developers as well. But specifically, we're talking about indies here. They are sending out their Dev Kits for free for the first year so that developers can kind of get their foot in the door with the console and get games out there. This is yet another example of Sony's developer-friendly mantra going into the next generation. A dev kit for the PS4 would normally cost $2,500. Presumably, if you want to use it for more than a year, you'll have to pony up $2,500. But the first year you have it, it is free. All the indies I know got them for free. An anonymous source reported Sony has been amazing about kits and development thus far. Self-publishing has been available on PlayStation platforms for over 5 years, so it's nothing new, a Sony spokesperson said. The process of devs bringing their games to market has continued to evolve, and PlayStation has led the charge in adapting and embracing new publishing rules to allow for more creative freedom for developers. So that's really cool of them. They are handing them out like candy, a developer said, of the PS4's dev kits. So, hey, if you're an indie developer and you want to be on the PS4 and you are serious about it, give Sony a call. They're also doing these events in Europe. I can't remember the name of the college right offhand, but they're holding these meetups. They're trying to hold the first one in September with indie devs to kind of meet in person and work things out. What do you guys need to be convinced to come to PS4, or maybe you're already convinced to come to PS4? What resources can we give you to smooth that transition along? So it seems like they're really trying to put their best foot forward with the indies here, and I really appreciate that. We're already seeing the results of those efforts with things like Outlast and Mercenary Kings and Transistor, which all looked absolutely amazing at E3. So keep an eye on the PS4 if you're an indie game fan for sure. And finally, we've got 2 pieces of news left. The first is that Activision will be bringing 6 games to the Wii U this year, and that includes Call of Duty Ghosts, of course. We've also got Skylanders, Swap Force, Angry Birds Trilogy, Angry Birds Star Wars, SpongeBob SquarePants Plankton's Robotic Revenge, and Wipeout Create and Crash, which, going by the name, will presumably let you create your own Wipeout courses. So, that's happening despite the fact that Activision is not necessarily super confident in the Wii U, if past statements are any indication. And the last story, ex-esports team owner charged in the largest hacking scheme ever persecuted in the United States. This was a story that kicked off about a year ago. Dimitri DDD1MS, and I'm going to totally butcher this guy's last name, Smiljanets? Smiljaneh? He was arrested during a global operation conducted by the FBI's Cyber Crimes Unit about a year ago. So, just a little over a week ago today, U.S. authorities confirmed that mangling his last name again, Smiljanets, was officially involved with the hacking operation, which has since been deemed the largest hacking and data breach scheme ever prosecuted in the United States by U.S. Attorney Paul Fishman. He and 4 other Russian and Ukrainian nationals are charged with running a highly sophisticated hacking network responsible for the theft of at least 160 million debit and credit card numbers, messing with the NASDAQ, and a bunch of other crazy shit like that. They will have stolen millions upon millions of dollars. So the esports team that he ran was forced to shut down thanks to the arrest and the lack of funds that it was bringing in. But a new manager, Konstantin Pickner, he announced a few days later that the LOL team would reform under Gambit Gaming. Sorry for mangling all those names. So let's check out what is coming out over the next week, because I remembered for sure that Divinity Dragon Commander will be coming to Steam for $40 this week. Exact date, August 6th, so Tuesday. Dragon Commander is a kind of weird hybrid of flight action, you're flying on a dragon, attacking dudes, with kind of a strategy game. I'm going to pop open the page here because it's super weird looking. I'm super interested in it. It has a really fantastic visual style, and if I'm not mistaken, they actually crowdfunded this game. But trying to Google that and find out. Not finding a whole lot. I didn't find Divinity Original Sin. Maybe that's what I was thinking of. But it's essentially, or it appears to be, there's just so many layers to this game. It's so weird. So it looks like a strategy game where you go around and you capture territories and fight battles. It looks like there's a story with dialogue trees and kind of branching conversation paths and stuff like that. You get cards, which you can use to, I think, like augment yourself in battle. So you've got combat cards for dragon powers, units. So you're collecting cards somewhere here, and then also you can hop into the persona of a dragon rider and actually fly this dragon around and blow guys out of the sky. So it's like this weird, crazy potpourri of elements getting tossed together into this game that actually looks really neat, and so I'm kind of excited, and kind of tentatively so, because I don't really like the regular Divinity games that much, but tentatively excited about this game because it just looks so strange and interesting. After that, we've got Beat Buddy Tale of the Guardians. We should have a review of that up. I've been talking to the developers a little bit, and it's basically a music-based puzzle kind of adventure game with a really neat, clean 2D art style. So the way that you move around obstacles and solve puzzles kind of feeds into the dynamic soundtrack. Looks like a lot of fun. Papers, Please is coming to Steam on August 8th. This is best described as an adventure game, but it's not really. You work as an employee of the border guard, so people come to you and they present you with their papers to get into the country. They're moving or visiting the country, or maybe they're trying to sneak in, and you have to look at their documents and determine, are these people legally allowed to come into the country or not? Then you kind of have this series of checks that you go against, like, okay, I look at the ID, does the ID look legit? Look up the information, does the ID match this person's information in our database, etc. And the kind of moral challenge comes when someone's trying to get into the country and they're trying to do so illegally, but they are doing so because they have family in the country. Maybe her husband or his wife was just admitted to the country, and he's trying to go along with them, or they've got a sick family in the country or something like that, but you also have a family that you have to take care of, and you need to keep this job in order to keep your kid from getting sick and dying, keep the lights on and everything. So you kind of can't afford to not be really harsh with the way that you turn people away in that game. So it's kind of more of like an empathy kind of game than necessarily a traditional video game, but it's really interesting. So check it out. It's only $10. DuckTales Remastered is coming on August 13th, and so is, again, I'm probably gonna butcher this, Europa Universalis 4 from I believe it's from Paradox. Let's take a look. Yep, it's Paradox joint. And DuckTales obviously coming from Capcom, been remastered by WayForward. Super pumped for that. Old NES game reboot, in case you're not old. And Europa Universalis, the same kind of world domination strategy kind of deal that it usually is. If you're into Civ, for example, you might find Europa Universalis a lot of fun. Finally, Worms Clan Wars is coming out on the 15th of August for $25, which is quite steep for a Worms game. But you can get it for $18.74 right now if you pre-order. It's at a 25% discount. And looking at this, I had literally never heard of this game before until right now. Basically, this looks like a Worms game. Not more worms, larger landscapes, definitely larger landscapes. You can tell from the screenshots. More dynamic water, more weapons, and more customization. It basically looks like a Worms game. I don't know why it's so $25-ish. There's already a lot of Worms games out there for $10, $15. Anyways, last game, Space Hulk, is coming out on August 15th, based on the Warhammer 40k kind of Space Hulk offshoot. It's a strategy game, turn-based strategy game. Seems like it hews pretty closely to the rules of the board game, or the tabletop game rather. So I'm very anxiously kind of following this one along, because I do like Warhammer. I like the universe, let's say, more so than I actually like collecting all the things, and I really have no time to play a tabletop game at this point, but I love the universe of Warhammer, so I really want this game to be awesome. It is $30. It's coming on the 15th, and that's gonna do it for what's happening in the future on GameShampoo. We're gonna try and hopefully have coverage of most of those games. Those are the games that are coming out on Steam, on the coming soon section, so if you're interested in any of those, you can head over to Steam and pre-order them right now. That was the news for last week and next week, so thanks for watching, like and subscribe for more, and stay tuned.